This morning, you did it again. You woke up, you got ready, and before your real day had even started, you quietly handed away a piece of your life to a stretch of road you'll barely remember by tonight. It felt normal. It felt like just the way things are. But that forgettable little gap between your front door and your desk is one of the most expensive things you own. And almost nobody is charging you for it directly, so the bill never arrives, and you never notice how much you're paying. Here's the strange part. The real reason your commute costs so much has nothing to do with traffic. It isn't gas prices. It isn't your city's terrible road planning. It's something far older and far weirder than any of that. A pattern humans have been repeating for thousands of years without ever once sitting down and choosing it. Let me show you. Back in the 1990s, an Italian physicist named Cesare Marchetti noticed something odd about the way people move through cities. Whether they lived in ancient Rome, a medieval village, or a sprawling modern metropolis, they seemed to keep their daily travel to roughly the same amount of time. About 1 hour in total, moving from where they slept to where they worked and back again. He was building on earlier work by a transportation analyst named Yakov Zahavi, who had spotted the same stubborn pattern buried in the data. They called it a travel time budget. Today, people just call it Marchetti's constant. Now think about what that actually means. Over the centuries, cars got faster, trains got faster, highways got wider and straighter, and with every single leap in speed, something bizarre happened. We didn't use the time we saved to get home sooner. We used it to move farther away. We built bigger houses, cheaper, further out on the edge of everything, and then we drove longer to reach them. The hour never changed. Only the distance grew. So the technology that was supposed to hand you time back, it quietly spent every minute of it for you. You can watch this happen across history like a slow-motion accident. First, cities were small because you had to walk everywhere. Then came the streetcar, and neighborhoods stretched a little farther down the line. Then came the automobile and the highway, and suddenly people were living 30, 40, 50 minutes from the office and calling it a lifestyle upgrade. Every generation got a faster machine. Every generation used it to live farther out and travel just as long. The speed was real. The freedom was an illusion. Let's put an actual number on what that costs you. In the United States, the average one-way commute hovers somewhere around 26 to 28 minutes. Round trip, that's just under an hour a day. And for a huge number of people, it's a lot more than that. Now stretch that across a working life. 5 days a week. Roughly 48 weeks a year, once you take out holidays. Over a 40-year career, that adds up to somewhere in the neighborhood of 9,000 hours. 9,000 hours. Sit with that for a second. That's not a long weekend. That's not a nice vacation. That is the better part of an entire year of your waking life, spent staring at a bumper, a train door, or the back of a stranger's headphones. For some people, stretched across a whole career, it's closer to a year and a half. And you never really chose it. Not in one decision you could point to. It arrived one commute at a time, in pieces so small that each individual one felt like absolutely nothing. 20 minutes here, half an hour there. Who's going to fight over 20 minutes? But that's the whole trick, isn't it? The most expensive things in your life are almost never the big, dramatic purchases you agonize over. They're the tiny, repeating ones you stopped noticing a long time ago. The subscription you forgot about. The daily habit that quietly compounds. The commute you make on autopilot. Small, repeated, invisible. That's the exact shape of the costs that hurt you most. Now, you might be thinking, this is a channel about money. Why are we spending all this time talking about time? Because here's the thing almost nobody tells you plainly. Time is the only currency you actually start out rich in. And it's the only one you can never ever earn more of. You can lose money and make it all back. You can go completely broke and rebuild from zero. People do it every single day. But nobody in human history has ever recovered a lost hour. Every commute you take is a withdrawal from an account that only ever goes in one direction, down. And unlike your bank account, this one sends you no statement, No balance, no little alert buzzing in your pocket when you're running dangerously low. So it drains in total silence, which of course is exactly why it drains so fast. There's a cost you feel too, even when you can't quite put your finger on it. Two economists, Alois Stutzer and Bruno Frey, went looking for that hidden cost. They studied thousands of commuters, and they found something they named the commuting paradox. People with long commutes reported being noticeably less satisfied with their lives. And here's the twist that makes it fascinating. In theory, those people should have been compensated for the pain, either through higher pay or cheaper housing, by enough to make the whole trade genuinely worth it. But on average, they simply weren't. The daily misery of the commute quietly outweighed whatever they were getting in return. They were paying a steep price, and most of them had no idea they were even at the register. Why does this happen to smart, careful people? Because we are strangely, reliably bad at predicting how much something will grind us down over time. A bigger house, a greener neighborhood, a nicer kitchen. You can picture all of those instantly. You can imagine walking through the front door on day one. What you cannot picture, what your brain simply refuses to simulate, is the 400th time you sit in the exact same jam, late again, watching the same broken billboard for the 1000th time. The house delights you once. The commute punishes you daily. And in the long run, daily always wins. If this is already making you look at your own routine a little differently, that quiet little reframe right there is exactly what this whole channel exists to do. So do the one small thing that helps it reach the next person who needs it. Hit that like button and subscribe to Are You Rich Yet? It costs you about 1 second. And unlike your commute, you'll actually get that second's worth back. All right, let's keep going. Here's where the story gets genuinely interesting. For a stretch of recent history, millions of people ran an enormous accidental experiment. They stopped commuting almost overnight. And for once, researchers got to sit back and watch exactly what happens to all that reclaimed time. You'd assume people would just waste it. Some did, sure. But an awful lot of that recovered hour quietly flowed somewhere meaningful. More sleep. More time with the people they actually live with. More exercise. More real, focused work. More of 100 small things that the commute had been silently crowding out of their lives for years. People suddenly discovered they'd been time-rich the entire time. They'd just been spending all of it on the road without ever seeing the receipt. And notice what that quietly reveals. The commute was never free. Not for one single day. It had always been costing you those exact things. You just couldn't see the invoice because the payment was being taken out of a part of your life you'd long ago stopped counting. So let's talk about the money mistake all of this leads to. Honestly, it might be the most common one there is. Somewhere out there right now, there is a house or an apartment that is cheaper, purely because it's farther away. And the math looks completely obvious. Same amount of space, less money. Why on earth wouldn't you take it? But look closely, and you'll see you're only pricing the rent. You're not pricing the road. Move an extra 30 minutes out, each way, and you have just signed yourself up for an extra 5 hours every single week. That's 240 hours a year, plus the fuel, plus the wear and tear on the car, plus, quietly, the wear and tear on you. That cheaper home comes with a monthly payment that will never, ever show up on a bill. And it gets deducted straight from your one account that can never be refilled. Now, sometimes it's still genuinely worth it. Sometimes the extra space, the schools, the quiet, the yard, all of it really does pay you back in ways that matter. The point here isn't that farther is always the wrong choice. The point is that farther is never free, and almost nobody ever bothers to do the subtraction before they sign. This, right here, is one of the quiet things that people who build real, lasting wealth tend to understand very early. They don't just ask what something costs in dollars. They ask what it costs in hours. And then they ask the sharpest question of all. Can I buy that time back? Paying a little more to live closer to work. Choosing the job with the shorter trip over the one with the slightly bigger title. Spending money on purpose, deliberately, in order to stop spending hours. To them, that isn't laziness. It isn't some indulgent luxury. It's simply the best trade available anywhere. Handing over the one currency you can always earn more of in order to protect the one you never can. Because being rich was never really about the number sitting in your account. A gigantic balance with no time left to enjoy it isn't wealth at all. It's just a higher scoring version of the exact same trap everyone else is stuck in. So think back to this morning. You woke up, you got ready, and you handed away a piece of your life to a stretch of road. The same trade you'll make again tomorrow and again the day after that, one small, forgettable withdrawal at a time. You can't get those particular hours back. That much is done. But you can start to notice them. You can begin putting a real price on the thing you always just assumed was free. And the moment you can finally see the cost clearly, you get to do something you couldn't do before. You get to decide whether it's actually worth paying, instead of paying it every day in your sleep. That's the whole game, in the end. Not piling up more of something you'll never find the time to spend. Getting back more of the one thing you were quietly spending all along. So the next time you're sitting in that traffic, watching the clock tick forward, do one thing for me. Ask yourself the only question that ever really mattered. Are you rich yet?